What's up, guys? Welcome back. Now, you may have had meatloaf before in your life, but I bet you've never had this Make It Happen meatloaf. Meet me in the kitchen. Let's make it happen.
Put it on a sandwich.
It's way better than their ketchup method.
Way better.
All right, guys, first things first, we're going to prep our veggies. Real simple today. We have some bell pepper and some onion. I like to blend mine up so it's a real fine consistency. You can use a cheese grater or like a NutriBullet or something like that. That way you get the flavor without big old chunks of bell pepper in your meatloaf. So for that, we just need to give a real rough chop to the veggies. That's going to help them blend up easier. And then we're going to add them to, a food processor, blender, something of that nature to turn this into a puree of sorts. That way we can get the flavor in there without the chunkiness that your mama's meatloaf probably had. Shout out to your mom. We're going to go ahead and get this chopped up into small pieces, make it a little bit more manageable. All right, guys, now it's time to prep the meatloaf. We have 2 pounds of ground beef here. You can use turkey, chicken, whatever floats your boat. I like to use ground beef for mine. We're going to go ahead and kind of start to mix the meat a little bit. We're going to add some of our pureed onions and bell pepper, probably about a half cup of that. That way you get the flavor in there. We got some parsley, a few tablespoons of parsley. We got a good tablespoon of garlic going in. We got garlic and herb Boursin cheese. This stuff is good, guys. If you haven't used this yet, it's great in pastas, it's great on a charcuterie board, and it's great mixed into your meatloaf. If you don't believe me, you got to try this recipe. There'll be some purists in the comments that say all you need is meat and ketchup or whatever the hell y'all do on your meatloaf. Trust me. I assure you, my meatloaf is probably better than yours if you're one of those people in the comments. But I'm willing to, try it out. We're also going to add a tablespoon or so of sour cream. That's going to add some texture and keep the meatloaf nice and moist, along with the Boursin that's bringing a lot of flavor. We're also going to add a tablespoon of worst word in the world sauce. Season this up. Get in there and give everything a good mix before we add in the eggs and the breadcrumbs. It's going to act as a binder. Now for the seasoning, we're going in with a little buttery garlic pepper, a little bit of my all-purpose seasoning, and some smoked paprika. A little bit more AP.
And this episode is sponsored by the Chef Floor Thermomill. This is the world's first ingenious 2-in-1 pepper grinder thermometer. This bad boy is equipped with ultra fast grinding, faster than every other pepper grinder on the market. It also has an extra thick 5mm bottle for extra durability and longer lasting pepper flavor. The thermometer has almost 0 deviation temperature measurements with a 2-second instant response. Also, one of the things that I love most about the pepper grinder function is that you can set how coarse you want your pepper flakes to be. You can get them super fine, or you can leave them coarse if you're making something like a steak or chicken breast like I'm doing today. So not only can you season your protein absolutely perfectly with this pepper grinder, but you can also use the thermometer to ensure that you don't over or undercook anything. Also, guys, I can't say enough about the durability of this pepper grinder. I have owned dozens of them in my lifetime, and this is by far the highest quality one that I've ever had. I absolutely love this thing, and I think you'll like it too. So head over to cheffloor.com and get you one today. I've linked to everything down in the description box below.
All right, now get in there with your hands and fold everything together. You don't want to overwork it too much, but a lot of these ingredients are going to help bind it together. We're also going to pop it in the fridge for about 30 to 45 minutes before we put it in the oven. That's also going to help your meatloaf stick together. Tons of flavor in this meatloaf, guys. I'm telling you, if you haven't tried it yet, it's one of the most popular recipes on my channel. We decided to redo it. Got to get it up for the blog. Plus, the equipment's gotten a little bit better since we started the channel. So if you haven't tried this one yet, it's phenomenal. You can make meatballs out of this, obviously, too. But you can't go wrong with a Make It Happen meatloaf. What you want to see is good color distribution. That's going to indicate that all the ingredients are, evenly incorporated. And then we're going to go ahead and add in our egg. Begin to fold that in, then add in some breadcrumbs, a little bit at a time. You can save the remaining parsley for garnish at the end. It's going to make a fantastic sauce that's going to go on top of this too. If you're a gravy person, that's cool. You can throw gravy on top of here. I didn't grow up eating meatloaf with gravy, so I like mine this way, but you know, feel free to customize it to your liking. Now's a great time to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any of these great recipes. You can find all the printable directions, pictures, step-by-step directions at MrMakeItHappen.com. Now, once you can pick it up like one big meatball and it kind of holds together, that's a good indicator that it's starting to get, you know, the consistency that you need to be able to turn it into a loaf. You can put it in one of those loaf pans. I'm not a huge fan of that because a lot of the grease pools on the sides and prevents it from getting crispy. And one of my favorite bites is the crispy edge on the meatloaf. So I'll show you guys how I like to do mine. But before we do that, we're gonna go ahead and pop this in the fridge. Next up, it's time to make the sauce for your meatloaf. Now, I know there's some folks out there that like a tomato-based sauce or a ketchup topping. For me, I like a combination of ketchup, a little Dijon for some bite, brown sugar, and barbecue sauce. So we're going in with 1 cup of ketchup, 1 cup of your favorite barbecue sauce. Just gonna eyeball it here. I've done this enough. Tablespoon or 2 of Dijon mustard. 1/4 cup of brown sugar. 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Turn this heat down before we mess everything up, Matt. And then we're gonna add a couple teaspoons of Worst Word in the World sauce, and then just season this with AP and some smoked paprika. Real simple, delicious. It's gonna caramelize nicely. The sugar content is gonna caramelize on the exterior of the meatloaf, giving you that nice crunchy bite we all love. Nice little sweet, savory combination. All right, guys, so we let the meatloaf chill in the refrigerator for about an hour. That's gonna help it keep its shape nice and cold. That's what you want. Then we're gonna form it into a loaf shape and then get it on our baking sheet that's lined with some foil, wire rack on top of that. We're gonna spray the wire rack with some cooking spray just to make sure the meatloaf doesn't stick. Nothing worse than executing a perfect meatloaf and then it sticks to your wire rack. That's not what you want to have happen. So right now I'm just kind of folding everything in, making sure that it's, you know, everything's kosher, and testing to make sure that it's going to hold together. I feel pretty good about it, so we're going to go ahead and form it into our loaf shape. No right or wrong way to do this, guys. You can kind of like thin it out if you want to. You can make it thick, really up to you. I like to use my hand as a guide to kind of form it at the ends. And do the same thing headed in the other direction. And then just give it some shape at the end on the other side. Try to make it as even as possible. That way it cooks evenly. I also don't like the middle to be too fat because sometimes the middle will be underdone. And you don't want that either. So just keep those, you know, few small things in mind and you'll be good to go. We're also going to hit it with a little bit of extra seasoning on top before it goes into the oven, just to make sure we're covering our bases. That seasoning is also going to help form that crust we talked about earlier, which is one of my favorite bites of the meatloaf. But there you have it. All right, guys, now it's time for one of the best sides on earth, mashed potatoes. For that, we need 2.5 cups of heavy cream, half and half, or milk. Combination of all three is cool. Whatever you got in the fridge. Just know that if you use heavy cream, the consistency is going to be a little thicker than if you use milk. But either way, you can still, you know, adjust it as needed based on how much you use in your potatoes. So we're going in with also a 1/4 stick of butter. We got some fresh rosemary and thyme. We're basically going to create a nice little cream sauce here that we're infusing with flavor, garlic, herbs, things that taste great with potatoes. And then we're going to pour that into our potatoes as we mash them to flavor them. One of the key mistakes that people make when it comes to mashed potatoes, in my opinion, is adding cold liquid to hot potatoes. That'll activate the gluten a little bit more and make the potatoes a little bit chewy. And that's not how I like my potatoes. So we're going to do it this way. Make sure it's nice and warm. Make sure this tastes great before it goes into the potatoes. We're boiling our potatoes in water and chicken bouillon powder, basically chicken broth. to add additional flavor to the potatoes. As you can see, our pot's a little larger than it needs to be, but no big deal. It's gonna get the job done. I'm gonna get the handheld masher just like Granny used to have. Begin the mashing process while the potatoes are still hot. If you wanna put these through a food mill or a potato ricer for a finer consistency, you can do that. I like my potatoes a little bit on the chunky side, like you if you eat too many of these potatoes. We're gonna go ahead and mash these up. Once the potatoes are most of the way mashed, we're gonna grab a strainer and strain our delicious cream and butter mixture. A little bit at a time, guys. Don't jump the gun and go crazy because you don't want to overdo it. Once it's in there, you can't take it out. You can always add more if needed. So we're gonna get that in there, and then we're gonna season to taste, and you got yourself some delicious mashed potatoes, my friends. All right, guys, when the meatloaf comes out of the oven, you want it to be registering about 160 degrees internal temperature. Allow it to rest for about 10 to 12 minutes before you slice into it. We're plating it up with some mashed potatoes today. Serve it with a side salad, asparagus, broccoli, whatever floats your boat. This is the part where I say brace yourself for a trademark money shot. Say it with me, guys. Looking good. The only thing left to do is dig in for the taste test. But before we do that, please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that bell to enable notifications as well. All right, guys. Meatloaf is really, honestly, one of my favorite things to eat. People don't believe me when I say that, but I just love meatloaf. It's juicy, it's flavorful. I gotta get that crusty bite on the edge. There we go. Little mashed potatoes. This little exterior piece right here, it's got my name all over it. Cheers.